The T-Row Show. Transmitting truth. One week at a time.
Welcome to the 12th episode of the T-Row Show. I'm your host, Keith, and host Stu and Tony. Say hello, guys.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, we were going to go over 5 and 6 of the Creatures of the State episode series. We're going to go ahead and do that next week. Some subject matter came up that happened back on 10/5/2014 that we need to address immediately. The reason why we need to address this immediately is because the people in this country are very concerned and very confused as to why the left is being so violent in this country. They're also confused of which direction this country was going until the people woke up. The people that woke up still do not understand why the left is so violent towards them. Why are schools attacking children for saying the word Trump? Why are people being attacked for having a Trump sticker? Why are talk show hosts continually attacking the White House? This point meaning the left or the right, lower echelon, do not know why they're doing it. Does that make sense? They don't. The Jimmy Kimmels, he doesn't know why he's attacking Trump, or why he's told to say these things on his talk show. Colbert, he doesn't even understand why he's doing what he's doing. Maybe. I know the upper echelon do understand why they're doing what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish. So in case you didn't understand this whole argument, back and forth, and why people are being called nationalists or being called racist, why all these things are happening, we're going to direct your attention over to what was in store for this country. We introduced to everyone the Declaration of Interdependence of 1976. Now keep in mind, it does not say Declaration of Independence, and it does not say dependence. It says interdependence. It's a different term. We're going to read this, and then you're going to see, and you're going to be noticed of what the government of the United States of America is going to do to deal with this issue. Everybody ready to go?
Ready.
Let's hit it. All right. When in the course of history, and by the way, the link to this will be down below on our YouTube page and all the rest of the pages that we publish these things, this show on. When in the course of history the threat of extinction confronts mankind, it is necessary for the people of the United States to declare their interdependence with the people of all nations and to embrace those principles and build those institutions which will enable mankind to survive and civilization to flourish. 2 centuries ago, our forefathers brought forth a new nation. Now we must join with others to bring forth a new world order. On this historic occasion, it is proper that the American people should reaffirm those principles on which the United States of America was founded, acknowledge the new crisis which confronts them, accept the new obligations which history imposes upon them, and set forth the causes which impel them to affirm before all people their commitment to a declaration of interdependence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that the inequalities and injustices which affect so much of the human race as a product of history and society not of God or nature. That people everywhere are entitled to the blessings of life and liberty, peace and security, and the realization of their full potential. That they have an inescapable moral obligation to preserve those rights for posterity. And that to achieve these ends, all the peoples and nations of the globe should acknowledge their interdependence and join together to dedicate their minds and their hearts to the solution of those problems which threaten their survival. To establish a new world order of compassion, peace, justice, and security, it is essential that mankind free itself from the limitations of national prejudice and acknowledge that the forces that unite it are incomparably deeper than those that divide it. That all people are part of one global community, dependent on one body of resources, bound together by the ties of the common humanity and associated in a common adventure on planet Earth. Let us join together to vindicate and realize this great truth that mankind is one, and as one will nobly save or irreparably lose the heritage of thousands of years of civilization to survive. Then they have their affirmations. They affirm that the resources of the globe are finite, not infinite, that they are the heritage of no one nation or generation, but of all peoples, nations, and of posterity, and that our deepest obligation is to transmit to that posterity a planet richer in material bounty, in beauty, and in delight than we found it. Narrow notions of national sovereignty must not be permitted to curtail that obligation. That the exploitation of the poor by the rich and the weak of the strong, by the strong violates our common humanity and denies to large segments of society the blessings of life, liberty, and happiness. We recognize a moral obligation to strive for more prudent and more equitable sharing of the resources of the earth in order to ameliorate poverty, hunger, and disease. And I hope I didn't butcher that word there. That the resources of nature are sufficient to nourish and sustain all the present inhabitants of the globe, and that there is an obligation on every society to distribute those resources equitably, along with a corollary obligation upon every society to assure that its population does not place upon nature a burden heavier than it can bear. It says here, we affirm our responsibility to help create conditions which will make for peace and security and to build more effective machinery for keeping peace among nations. Because the insensate accumulation of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons under international supervision. We deplore the reliance on force to settle disputes between nation states and between rival groups within such states. That the oceans are the common property of mankind whose dependence on their incomparable resources of nourishment and strength will, in the next century, become crucial for human survival, and that their exploitation should be so regulated as to serve the interests of the entire globe and of future generations. That pollution flows with the waters and flies with the winds, that recognizes no boundary lines and penetrates all defenses, when it works irreparable damage alike to nature and to mankind, threatening with extinction the life of the seas, the flora, the fauna of the earth, the health of the people in cities and countryside alike, and that it can be adequately controlled only through international cooperation. By the way, folks, you're not hearing things. This literally was done. Okay? We affirm that the exploration and utilization of outer space is a matter of equally important to all nations of the globe, and that no nation can be permitted to exploit or develop the potentialities of the planetary system exclusively for its own benefit. That the economy of all nations is a seamless web, and that no one nation can any longer effectively maintain its processes of production and monetary systems without recognizing the necessity for collaborative regulation by international authorities. That a civilized society, the institutions of science and the arts are never at war, and call upon all nations to exempt these institutions from the claims of chauvinistic nationalism, and to foster that great community of learning and creativity whose benign function is to advance civilization and the health and happiness of mankind. That the world without law is a world without order, and we call upon all nations to strengthen and to sustain the United Nations and its specialized agencies and other institutions of world order, and to broaden the jurisdiction of the World Court, that these may preside over a reign of law that will not only end wars, but end as well that mindless violence which terrorizes our society even in times of peace. We can no longer afford to make little plans, allow ourselves to be captives of events and forces over which we have no control, consult our fears rather than our hopes. We call upon the American people on the threshold of the third century of their national existence to display once again that boldness, enterprise, magnanimity, and vision which enabled the founders of our republic to bring forth a new nation and inaugurate a new era of human history. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance. Throughout the globe, hearts and hopes wait upon us. We summon all mankind to unite to meet the great challenge. Did they say third century? Did y'all hear that?
Yep.
Yes, I believe so. Let me pull the doc back up.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. Where was that?
That was second to the last paragraph. 1, 2, 3, third line down. Starts off, we call upon the American people.
There it is. Okay. Of the third century of their national existence. Oh, okay, I see what they're saying. There were 2 centuries, now the third. Okay, got it. I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense to me. Now, keep in mind, folks, that what they did was they took your inheritance. This was done in 1976. Your inheritance and your estates were pledged to a new world order without your knowledge nor consent. Now, how did they do that? It's down at the bottom, and everybody thinks that sometimes when we say, well, we went back and got the original 1781 and revamped it into a national government instead of a confederacy of states, that we were crazy, and they go, there's no way you guys hold any power and all this other kind of stuff. All right, now listen to this. Take it from the people that stole your inheritance. The interdependent assemblies, their concluding consultation and convocation will provide the initial 1976 program agenda for the bicentennial era paralleling the 13 years matching the period between 1776 and final adoption of the U.S. Constitution in 1789. I'll read that again. The interdependence assemblies, their concluding consultation and convocation will provide the initial 1976 program agenda for the bicentennial era paralleling the 13 years matching the period between 1776 and the final adoption of the U.S. Constitution in 1789. They just said paralleling. They didn't say they claimed it. They didn't claim that era between 1776 and 1789. They paralleled it.
That was carefully chosen language.
Yes, that was so they weren't trespassing on your estates. However, they created a fictional parallel universe from that era. Now, if the Democrats and the communists can figure this out, why can't the people figure this out? That is where your original inheritance resides. And that's what the General Post Office of 1775 is, and that's where the original Confederacy of 1781, all those, that whole era right there is where your inheritance was being held. And still is today. So, it goes on to a bunch of more basic crap, is all it is. Now, you'd be extremely surprised of who signed a lot of this. We'll just say a few names, because you can go take a look at it for yourself. Henry Steele Camager, I don't know what the hell his last name is. This is World Affairs Council of Philadelphia, 1775. This is done October 24, 1775. The following members of Congress signed this document: James Aborzik, Edward W. Brooke, Frank Church, Dick Clark, Alan Cranston, Jacob Javits, Mike Gravel, Mark Hatfield, Hebert Humphrey, Daniel K., whatever the hell that is, George McGovern, Thomas J. McIntyre, Spark Matsunaga, Charles Matthews. It's just a few. This goes on for 6 pages. Plus organizations and all that, I'm sorry, it goes on for, yeah, 6 pages, pretty much, of the amount of people that signed your inheritance away, that pledged you, based on their view of nationalism as being chauvinistic. It's their opinion. They made it up. For you to have a nationality, this was straight in the face of Article 15 of the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If Hillary would have gotten into that office, she would have brought this thing forward to a point to where the world would have been a nightmare, because no one would have ever understood this. She would have silenced those that knew about it and knew they could do something about it and change it. Those first 6 months would have been nothing more than vindictive revenge against anybody that spoke out against her. Everybody knows that. Do you guys want to go over some of these affirmations, explain a little bit about them? Then we can go into what the government can do about it.
Yep, I think it'll help the listeners
I think that's
understand.
a good idea.
Yep.
Help folks understand how to understand, how to comprehend some of these docs, and so yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay. By the way, there is Be a Signatory website, which we'll put the link down below the YouTube, this particular YouTube channel, and you'll be able to go there and they say, well, be a signatory to it. It's still there, guys. If you think we're crazy, take a look. This was also mentioned 10/5/2014, where the Human Rights Tribunal came together and said the Constitution for the new states of America is suspended for multiple human rights violations. What sparked from this Declaration of Interdependence was the Constitution for the new states of America. You can go over there. I'll leave a link on there, on below, on the YouTube page below, and you can go ahead and take a look. And we have a copy of the new states of America, and they advertised it as, oh, well, this is just a proposal constitution. So if you ever wonder why you go into a courtroom, you bring in a U.S. Constitution or any other kind of constitution, and all of a sudden you're a sovereign citizen domestic terrorist. Now, let's explain that just a little bit before we move on to going into these particular articles and their affirming. What happens when you're called a sovereign citizen domestic or a sovereign citizen is you go on a list. You are labeled and or profiled as being a danger to police. In other words, sovereign citizen means you want to kill police. You want to murder police and their whole families. That's what that means. So what happens when the police think and believe on a local level, because that's what they're told by the people that signed this Declaration of Interdependence, that you want to kill them? What do? It scares them. So what do? What do the police do? They ride by your house real slow. Constantly. Could be 10, 20 times a day. That's called gang stalking. Then you get pulled over for whatever reason because they got to get your license suspended. If they can get your license suspended, then you can't work. And when you can't work, you can't pay your bills. And when you can't pay your bills, and at the same time they're wanting you to come to court to fight all this, they're slowly draining your resources. And when they slowly drain your resources, they completely destroy your life. Not to mention that every time you're pulled over, you've got 15 cops out there ready to shoot you because they're told and they believe you want to kill them. One of the organs of those folks that signed the Declaration of Interdependence is SPLC. That's what SPLC does. You start talking about national sovereignty, you end up on that website.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point before we get into interpretations and stuff. There's also on the document an acknowledgement of organizations that have contributed. And to name a couple, we've got the Council on Foreign Relations, and we've got the American Bar Association. So
kind of ties into that state within a state thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's go to the first affirmation. Now, when you do an affirmation, that makes it legal. Okay, they've affirmed it, and that's it. And this is the way they were going. All right, that the resources of the globe are finite, not infinite. That they are the heritage of no one nation or generation, but of all peoples, nations, and of posterity. And that our deepest obligation is to transmit to that posterity a planet richer in material bounty, in beauty and in delight that we found it. Narrow notions of national sovereignty must not be permitted to curtail that obligation. So what did these people just do? They just claimed all the minerals of the world, which they had absolutely no authority to do. Then they decided where it's going to go and what's going to happen with it. They are making all the decisions.
Yep.
Does that not sound like national sovereignty to you? It just becomes a global sovereignty.
Yeah, and they also state categorically that no national sovereignty must not be permitted to curtail that obligation.
That's right.
It doesn't get any, your language choice doesn't get any stronger than that. Must not be permitted. National sovereignty must not be permitted. Pretty much we could stop there.
That's how messed up this is, okay? Now you go into, which is right in the face of Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone is guaranteed or has the right to a nationality. That's it. Okay, that the exploitation of the rich or poor by the rich and the weak by the strong violates our common humanity and denies large segments of society the blessings of life, liberty, and happiness. Oh, you mean those people that put themselves behind walls that go to the Oscars? Those people that signed this or enforcing it, that exploit the poor and the weak and deny large segments of society blessings of life, liberty, and happiness. Those people, right? Is that what we're talking about here? Just wondering. We recognize a moral obligation to strive for a more prudent and more equitable sharing of the resources of the earth in order to ameliorate poverty, hunger, and disease. Really? Okay, well, we need, Jimmy Kimmel, he needs to write us a check. How about that? Come on, man. You recognize a moral obligation to strive for a more prudent and more equitable sharing. You mean all the equitable sharing that was going on in Haiti to all the people there? Isn't that what happened, guys?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That equitable sharing. Okay, I just didn't understand. What were you saying? Stu?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just going to basically comment on the same type of thing. It's interesting how the left money pockets of money are the ones that are the attack dogs, and yet they're the ones that are behind fences and gated communities and
guns.
Yeah, and but they're not willing to alter their political perspective. And you made a good point that where are the charitable contributions from these Hollywood people or these musicians that make $40 million a movie and $30 million a tour. Well, we're getting an electrical storm here.
You're probably going to be getting some. So
if I cut out, you'll know why.
No problem. And what about the bank bailout? You mean those guys?
Another great example.
Yeah, that recognize a moral obligation to strive for a more prudent and more equitable sharing of the resources of the earth. Oh, okay. So now you understand what happened in North Dakota with the Indians. That the Indians were being demonized because they didn't recognize the moral obligation. They were immoral. That's how the people that sign this thing think. It's completely hypocritical. That the resources of nature are sufficient to nourish and sustain all the present inhabitants of the globe, and that there is an obligation on every society to distribute those resources equitably. Really? Okay, Walmart, start distributing. We don't need that perceived, that notion of money. So start giving away your food, along with is that how you spell it? It looks like a corollary.
Corollary.
Corollary. Thank you. Obligation upon every society to assure that its population does not place upon nature a burden heavier than it can bear. Okay, Manhattan Island, why are you guys dumping all your garbage in the ocean every single day? Tons and tons of it. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to say that, was I?
That's immoral.
That might be immoral, yeah. That tons and tons, and I'm talking about tons of garbage every day, folks, goes out on a barge and dumped in the ocean. Can you imagine what the bottom of the ocean looks like around Manhattan Island?
Probably looks like downtown New York.
Yeah, a city, a city of garbage.
Yeah, and you know you've got the stress on the environment. You know, it's a worthy perspective and all, except why do we have chemtrails?
Yeah. You know, wait. Instant accumulation of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons under international supervision. You got it. Right there, chemtrails. Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry, Stu. That's contrails, man. I think you were mistaken. Yeah, it's
I've done my homework. I know the difference.
You were mistaken. Nothing going on here. Nothing going on.
Nothing to see. Move along.
Move along now. Nothing to see. So our responsibility to help create conditions which will make for peace and security, and to help build more effective machinery for keeping peace among nations. That's building of armies, folks.
Yeah, that's robotics. That's what they're saying there. They're going to pursue, you know, what transhumanism, right? So you're a $6 million man, you're going to be able to do with your eye and robotics. You know, they've already got some of that stuff. I recall, and this is just a side note, I recall a couple of years ago spending some time researching DARPA. And, you know, they've got these robot dogs now. And they're, if I recall correctly, the article said they were 8 years or so, decade or so away from deployment. But, you know, they're field personnel, basically. They're dogs, and they carry saddlebags for the troops. But in addition to something like that, which is kind of a good idea, they are also developing robotic army men. So, you know, the Terminator movies is something that we may have to come to grips with in another 25, 30 years.
That is provable, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's not out of that's not crazy at all, because you can see that already.
Yeah. They don't hide it at this point.
We deplore the reliance on force to settle disputes between nation states and between rival groups within such states. We deplore the reliance. They're so full of it. It's unbelievable. You deplore so we deplore the reliance upon force, but yet you go out and attack people because of their political decision. And by the way, our government and the people on this call here, or on this show, we're not either. We have our own government and our own elections. We're just looking at the hypocrisy of it, because it's starting to affect our government and our people, our American nationals and our residents and our general postmasters. This crap is spilling over. And this is why we can't get a national currency in, or national money, because these jacklicks are interfering with all that. Now listen to this. That the oceans are common property of mankind. Really? Seriously? So you can't have what? You can't have metes and bounds? That's how you get rid of your metes and bounds, folks, is you get rid of your claim upon the sea past the baseline. Because if you don't, your country is landlocked. So what did they do? They landlocked all the countries. Just on that. That the oceans are common property of mankind, whose dependence on their incomparable resources of nourishment and strength will in the next century become crucial for human survival. And that they're, are we looking forward? Are we telling the future? Are we looking at an intent here? Resources of nourishment and
Sounds
strength.
to me like that's exactly what they're saying.
Yeah. In the next century become crucial for human survival. Why is that? What are you guys getting ready to do?
Right. They're telegraphing it.
Okay, if they know the future so well, tell us what the weather's going to be in 30 days. Not one meteorologist, not one computer or anything can tell you what the weather's going to be in 30 days. They're all predictions.
They have trouble with the 7-day forecast being accurate.
Pretty much, yes, they do. I'm sorry, that the pollution flows with the waters and flies with the winds. That it recognizes no boundary lines and penetrates all defenses. That it works irreparable damage alike to nature and to mankind, threatening with extinction of the life of the seas, the flora, the fauna of the earth, and health of the people in cities and countryside alike, and that it can be adequately controlled only through international cooperation. Great, start incinerating your garbage, Manhattan Island.
Well, I also like the idea here, right at the end of that paragraph, that it can be adequately controlled.
Only through international cooperation.
Yeah, so they're claiming that if you cooperate with our movement, you'll be able to be the beneficiary of controlled environment. I'm not sure I like the sound of that.
Especially from people who we see more hypocrisy than from anyone on the entire planet. Now, folks, does it make sense why they can control Iran and the nuclear thing and North Korea and the nuclear thing? They're enforcing this, folks. This is what that new Declaration of Interdependence, that's what they thought would take the place of the Declaration of Independence. So they praised their forefathers in 1776. 200 years later, you know, look at the math, 200 years later, they praise them and then crap on them and call them nationalistic chauvinists.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, we're going to prepare this declaration based on the fact that these guys established a country, national sovereignty, but we're going to get rid of it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, but no thanks. And they did this arbitrarily. Nobody voted on this. Nobody even knew it existed, except for the people that signed it. And then started arbitrarily enforcing it. And calling themselves, advanced men and women. They come more to an advanced thinking, higher sense of intelligence. That the exploration and utilization of outer space is matter equally important to all nations of the globe, and that no nation can be permitted to exploit or develop the potentialities of the planetary system exclusively for its own benefit. Which means countries are going to sit back, let somebody else pay for it, and do all the exploration and all the work, and then when the benefit comes in, they go, "Oh, that's ours too." That's called parasitical thinking. Doesn't work.
Again, you've got this huge assertion of control. The exploration and utilization of outer space is a matter equally important to all nations. No nation can be permitted. No nation can be permitted to exploit or develop potentialities exclusively on its own. These guys they're going for it.
Yeah, they were. That the economy of all nations is a seamless web. Really? Okay, so who's going to control that seamless web? And that no one nation can any longer effectively maintain its processes of production and monetary systems without recognizing the necessity of collaborative regulation by international authorities. Oh, okay, you can no longer do what you can't handle your own cash, man. You can't handle your own money. That's what they're telling you. You don't know how to handle money, so it needs to come under the international authorities. What international authorities? Those international authorities got everybody in debt, can't handle their money?
Yeah, that's pretty presumptive.
Yes, it is.
No one nation can any longer effectively maintain its process of production. Wow.
Yeah. That's really sad thinking. That in a civilized society, what that does, folks, internally, that is designed to take away your self-confidence and your self-esteem. That statement right there, it's all designed to do that. That you can, that no one nation can any longer effectively maintain its processes of production and monetary systems. That is a way to take away your confidence, your self-esteem, and your whole being. Rip it away and enslave you with do what I tell you, which makes you nothing more than a slave resource. Just that particular affirmation itself. Now y'all know what happened to the Democratic Party, folks? Why it's acting so crazy and stupid? This is why. None of those people in the Democratic Party can think for themselves. All their confidence is gone. All their self-esteem is gone. They got nothing. Nothing left. Because their taskmasters have taken it from them and have full control over them.
It's also interesting. It's also interesting to note in that that reference there that they're asking, or they're affirming, that we need to recognize the necessity for collaborative regulation by international authorities, but they don't get into who that will be, how they'll be placed in a position of authority, etc.
Exactly. That in a civilized society, oh, I'm sorry, we went back to, they're going to tell us what a civilized society is now. The institutions of science and arts are never at war and call upon all nations to exempt these institutions from the claims of chauvinistic nationalism. What? You're going to exempt people from the chauvinistic nationalism?
Right. So if you believe in your nation,
yeah.
Yeah, if you believe in your nation, you're chauvinistic.
And to foster that great community of learning and creativity whose benign function is to advance civilization and the health and happiness of mankind. So now you've got, oh, gee, exempt these institutions. Now you got what? Title of nobility. It's the same old crap, guys. It's just under a different icing. It's the same cake. They just covered it with a different icing. It's title of nobility, same thing.
Yep, and we could also make a case about the institution of science not at war. Well, what's tainted vaccinations? That's not a at-war behavior. And
chauvinistic nationalism?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah, I guess we got to go to killing 58 million babies. Or
right.
58,000, or however many they've already killed. All right, or murdered. That the world without law is a world without order. Oh, okay. And we call upon all nations to strengthen and to sustain the United Nations and its specialized agencies. They use the word specialized as if it's actually means something. We all know about the specialized agencies. At least this government does. We've dealt with them. They're a freaking joke. And other institutions of world order, and to broaden the jurisdiction of the World Court. Oh, where's that World Court again, guys? Ah, that would be the Netherlands.
Is that in the Netherlands? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Netherlands. That's where the World Court. We're going to broaden that jurisdiction there, guys.
Yeah.
Gee, where did this particular affirmation come from? That these may preside over a reign of law that will not only end wars, but end as well the mindless violence which terrorizes our society even in times of peace. Oh, okay, all right, yeah. Let's mention Islam there.
Whose society are they talking about that's being terrorized?
I have no idea.
Yeah, strengthen and sustain the United Nations. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. Yeah.
Other institutions of world order. In other words, that's an institution of world order. It's specialized agencies or institutions of world order. And in addition to that, they want to broaden the jurisdiction. I mean, that's the globalists talking about a new world order.
Exactly.
Right. And that in part can explain the hysterics when Trump said that he was going to be addressing the relationship between the United States and the United Nations.
We can no longer afford to make little plans, allow ourselves to be the captives of events and forces over which we have no control, consult our fears rather than our hopes. This is, we call upon the American people on the threshold of the third century of their national existence, That tells you right there, these were not American people. To display once again that boldness, enterprise, and vision which enabled the founders of our republic to bring forth a new nation and to inaugurate a new era in human history. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance. Now, you have a republic, enable the founders of our republic to bring forth a new nation, which, by the way, you never had. That's a total joke. Where was the other part when they talk about national? Do you guys remember? Or can you find that again? There's two sections in here. One's chauvinistic nationalism. And they called it something else. For the life of me, I can't remember. National prejudice. That's to establish a new world order of compassion, peace, justice, and security. It is essential that mankind free itself from a limitation of national prejudice. So, now you understand, folks, and we're not on either side here. It doesn't affect us in any way. What we're saying is we're seeing the stories and seeing the human rights violations. That's where it affects us. And that's why if you voted for Trump, you're a prejudice. That's where it comes from. And the women that are for this type of thing, thinking you're going to get equal justice, equal this and equal that, that's where they're calling nationalism or being proud of your country. That's all it is, just being proud of your country, chauvinistic. And that's why they tried to prove that Trump was a chauvinist. That's why all this stuff is coming out. Now, I'm not saying he is or he isn't. We don't care. It doesn't matter. What we're saying is that's where all this is coming from. So if you want to know where these people are talking about global communities and everything else, read this Declaration of Interdependence. Now, since the government of the United States of America is a national government, this is what's going to happen. Stu, let them know what you're going to do on the website, and please tell them the address of the website, the address.
Okay, that'll take a moment here. I'll get the URL.
Well, go ahead and tell them.
We're going to exile. We're going to basically grant the people that signed this their wish, and we're going to exile them from the United States of America.
It will show on their national record that they exiled themselves. There'll be an executive order written to reflect their decision, their political decision, as in the record, or so it reflects the record.
So this government is just acknowledging their.
Yeah,
that's it. They're exiling themselves. We're just acknowledging that.
Right. I'll tell you. I think it's governor. Isn't it governor.theunitedstatesofamerica1781.com? I believe that's the URL. That would be governor.theunitedstatesofamerica the United States of America 1781.com. And Stu did mention that he was having electrical storms and he did get knocked off here. Okay, so people like Mr. Kimmel, who are enforcing these things. Okay? If you want to report people that are enforcing this declaration, because this is nothing more than theft, let us know. You can report that to Secretary of State at the United States of America 1781.com. If that is reported, we need to know the names of the people that are enforcing these things within courts, judicial branches, anything else, and those people are, and their record will show that they're exiled. They don't want nationalism? Great. No problem. We'll make sure that happens. Now, what does that do to them? Okay? Now, when something is pledged, in other words, they've claimed all of the estates of everyone and pledged it, what's going on is your estate, whether you know it or not, has been used as an insurance policy to cover the supranational corporations and their property through insurance policies. They had to have assets pooled so that they could monetize it and create an insurance policy for themselves. That's where your estates went. Once somebody has exiled themselves, their estate is gone. So they went and signed a declaration and or enforced a declaration of interdependence, which is the same as signing it, and gave up their national character, their nationality, and their estate, which was being held in between the 13 years between 1775 and 1789, of which that's what they believed was, which we still maintain that 1789 Constitution was never passed. It was never adopted. So you folks out there that want to go ahead and keep doing this and keep saying, this is prejudice and this is chauvinistic and you guys suck and blah, blah, you're just another Hitler and all that. Great, no problem. We'll go ahead and accommodate you on your exile. Then you're going to see real quick.
Yes, and I've returned. Sorry about that. Okay. So I've got the governor's webpage. It's governor spelled out, governor.the United States of America 1781.com. One more time, governor.the United States of America 1781.com. And okay. The directory is not up yet, but it's under development.
Okay, so anytime you guys see an executive order, an exile executive order, what you're seeing is that the Office of the Governor is going to write an executive order ordering that the government of the United States of America and their records reflect the political decision of the individual who exiled themselves. That's what's going on. Now, their multinational, supranational corporations are going to figure out that this individual here that signed this Declaration of Interdependence no longer has any estate. It cancels out the estate. They canceled it out themselves. It's now abandoned. And what happens? It goes back to where it came from, or where it was being held in the first place. Those assets are no longer available to the insurance companies. This whole world deals with two things. All wars start with two things. Number one, accounting. If the books are wrong, they have to be balanced. All wars start there. There's a debt, it has to be collected. That's what wars were about. And number 2, underwriting, chain of title. Claims upon title and property. Anything else we need to talk about?
Sounds like plenty to think about.
If any folks want to hear the word sovereign citizen when you talk about your national identity, let us know who said it. Let us know who did it. First of all, that's attempted murder. And because there's no proof that you want to go out and shoot police, they're just doing it. And number 2, they've just declared exile, folks. So we invite all the movie stars to keep talking and keep talking, because your records are going to reflect the same. Keep talking, folks. CNN, all you guys, keep talking. Keep Google. Keep trying to censor the internet. You're going to find yourselves, because remember, organizations are persons by your own words, and they're natural persons by your own words. So therefore, those natural persons will show and reflect who they are and what they're about, and show that they don't like national, they're in violation of Article 15 of the UDHR, which means they're human rights violators. And they are trying to destroy national sovereignty. And that being the case, I guess you've exiled yourself. How about them apples? Some of the organizations that we're going to be dealing with here, you got President Harvard University. Isn't that nice? You send your child to, that's an advisory committee for the Declaration of Interdependence. You send your child to the Harvard, and it's such a wonderful thing, and it's such a great deal, and all of a sudden they're committing major human rights violations. U.S. Senator, former mayor of Philadelphia, U.S. Secretary of Transportation. It goes on and on, guys. And you're going to see the Fidelity Bank, a member of the Commission of Organization of Government and Conduct of Foreign Policy. Philadelphia Fellowship Commission, Board of Education of Philadelphia. The Franklin Mint, the member, U.S. Assembly of the United Nations. They did all this. Girl Scouts International Congress, section of International Law, American Bar Association, National Council of Community World Affairs Organization, and there's also another full page of the signatories on this thing. So, Telecommunications Union, I guess you guys exiled yourselves from any form of nationality. That means all the people within that organization are stateless. And since it was voluntary, we're not violating any, the government of the United States of America is not violating any human rights. You guys volunteered for it. You did it. You made the decision. So there's nothing we can do other than make sure that your decision is legal and make sure that your decision is official. We want to make sure that that's for you, and that's a service.
That's correct.
Want to absolutely make sure that your political decision and political will is official.
Is honored.
That's right. Thank you for listening to the T. Rose Show. We hope you enjoyed the information, and we will be talking about sections 5 and 6, or in the series of Creatures of the State next week. Thank you for all the listens and subscriptions. They are still growing. And we appreciate you taking an hour out of your week to listen to us on the T. Rose Show. Go ahead and say goodbye, fellas.
No, thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Yep. Talk to you next week.